here to talk about concussion today. So I want to explain what the circadian rhythm and the glymphatic system have to do with recovering from a concussion. So let's get right into talking about what a concussion is. When your brain is injured, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals that weren't normally there, mostly made up of sodium and lactic acid. And your brain releases these chemicals in an effort to heal and protect itself. And it assumes that you're going to be clearing those chemicals away later when you sleep, and the next night and the next night. And most people get better after a head injury within a week or so. So the presence of those chemicals that I mentioned, like sodium and lactic acid, that is what leads to symptoms of concussion, especially when those chemicals linger. So when your brain doesn't do a good job with the glymphatic system clearing those chemicals out, if those chemicals are still hanging around, that's what leads to headache, nausea, trouble sleeping, increased anxiety, decreased mood, inattention. That is what a concussion is a list of symptoms from a head injury. But some people's brains don't do a good job of clearing away those chemicals as they sleep. So this leads me to talking about the glymphatic system. So the glymphatic system was discovered around 2014 by some scientists who were looking for the way to prevent Alzheimer's disease. These scientists found that when your brain is awake, you have cerebrospinal fluid on the outside of your brain and between your brain and your skull. And then you have cerebrospinal fluid in some pockets inside of your brain as well. When you sleep, there are channels that open up inside the brain that go along the outsides of the blood vessels. And the way these channels open up is your brain cells actually shrink a little bit. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, I know. But basically, when we are sleeping, the fluid goes inside of our brain to clear out the waste and the debris that was released during the day when we were awake and remembering things and having emotions. And this waste needs to be cleared away every night when we're sleeping. But this process of the brain cleaning itself with our cerebrospinal fluid going inside of our brain and clearing out the waste, it only happens when you have enough melatonin released while you're sleeping. So how do we make sure that we have enough melatonin released while we're sleeping? Well, that leads me to talking about the circadian rhythm. So this is an image of the circadian rhythm, and this is what is supposed to happen during the day and night to your hormones. The main two hormones that govern the circadian rhythm are cortisol, which is in blue, and melatonin, which is in pink. Okay, so our goal is to get enough melatonin released at night while we're sleeping, right? Because that's what gets the brain to wash itself, for the glymphatic system to work properly. So the way that we get enough melatonin to be released at night is by regulating cortisol during the day. So cortisol is meant to spike during the day. In the morning, it's meant to spike. And then it's supposed to gradually go down and then especially decrease in the evening, so that if this is down, then melatonin will kick in. These two guys are opposites of each other, so they can't be working, one can't be up if the other is up. So melatonin relies on cortisol to go down before it can come up. So let's talk about what sort of things bring cortisol up. So cortisol is brought up in the morning by moving around, getting your heart rate going, and seeing light, your digestive system turning on. Those are all healthy ways to get your cortisol up in the morning. Another really healthy way is to get your heart rate up in the morning, and the concussion research shows that as little as 8 minutes will make a huge impact on your regulation of cortisol and melatonin. So that means in the morning you could wake up and have 8 minutes of some kind of light cardio, nothing that is dangerous that is going to give you a concussion again, but something to get your heart rate up so that you'll bring that melatonin up. Something else that brings melatonin up is having some coffee, and so it's okay to have a little coffee in the morning. You just do not want to have any past noon especially. I would recommend just having your 1 cup of coffee though right when you wake up. And if you don't drink coffee at all, then don't start. This means that in order to let cortisol fall at night, there are things that you need to refrain from doing. So we already talked about refraining from caffeine after noon especially, and we also want to make sure to not be exposed to as much light at night. So this means dimming the lights around the house, but it especially means having a screen curfew. So a screen curfew just means that you're going to get away from your screens, your phone, your TV, your laptop entirely the hour before you are hoping to fall asleep. So for example, if you want to fall asleep at 9:30, at 8:30 you're going to have a screen curfew. You're going to put your phone away on the charger somewhere where it's not next to your bed, and you're going to do something else that you enjoy. So replace it with something positive like journaling, reading, playing cards, just hanging out, talking to family, something that is a happy activity. So another thing you want to think about is balancing your blood sugar actually, because if your blood sugar is going up and down and it's kind of on a roller coaster all day, then your cortisol is going to come up later too. So cortisol comes up if your blood sugar goes too high or too low. Anytime your blood sugar goes too high, that means it is going to go low. It's like a roller coaster. But if you can balance your blood sugar by eating fiber, then you won't have that blood sugar roller coaster, which also leads to a circadian or cortisol spike. So let's talk about exercise. So exercise is really great to do in the morning or earlier in the day, and you definitely don't want to do it at night. So I'll tell you a little story. I used to do bar at night around 6 p.m. Every Wednesday, and a lot of times other days too. I love bar so much, but it is a pretty stressful workout. You really get your heart rate up, and it was not a healthy thing to do at 6 p.m. when my cortisol was meant to be coming down. I was actually spiking it. So long story short, I started having panic attacks and wondering, why is my cortisol so out of whack? So that's why. So get your workouts in the morning or earlier in the day, and don't try working out at night. Go for a walk at night. That's cool. You should eat your dinner and then go for a walk, which actually leads me to another point. So you want to try to not have a big meal about 2 hours before bed. If you can just not eat 2 hours before bed, that would be great. Make sure you have a big enough meal earlier that you're not hungry later for a snack. So this idea spills over into anxiety too, which I will talk more at length in my next video in this concussion series. But this balancing your circadian rhythm will help you in a huge way with managing anxiety, which is actually really common when you have a concussion. It's one of the side effects. So the goal is to keep cortisol down in the evening. So many of us, first of all, we wake up and we still have melatonin high because it's hard for us to get out of bed and wake up and get going. And finally we drink our coffee and then our cortisol will spike. And then later we'll drink our coffee again and our cortisol will spike again, or maybe we'll work out later and our cortisol will spike again, or maybe we'll be working on our laptop and our cortisol will spike again. So cortisol takes a while to go down. So, let's say we do something like I go to my bar class at 6 p.m., I bring my cortisol up, or I'm doing my homework on my laptop at 6 p.m., I bring my cortisol up, and it takes a while to go down. So the goal is to get cortisol to come down in the evening. If you have to be on a screen, you could try wearing blue light glasses. That would help a little bit too. Of course, you have the settings on your phone to minimize the brightness, but that doesn't entirely take care of the problem. So I really hope that this helps at least some of you recover faster from your concussion. The more empowered you are with knowledge, the faster you'll recover. That's actually been proven in research with concussion patients. The more they understand their concussion and know what they can do in their own lives to get better faster, the faster they get better. So be sure to hit like and subscribe if you want to be updated the next time I post information about concussions. I'm really passionate about talking about all of the ways that you can get better from your concussion faster. And so I'm also going to be talking about exercise, anxiety, nutrition, more sleep stuff. I just have a lot to say. So I think this is the perfect platform for me. And if you're interested in hearing about all the other things I like to talk about, like for example, I'm plant-based, so I like to talk about that. I'm really into something called the starch solution. I'm a mom of an almost 1-year-old, and he's plant-based too. I have 2 mini doxies, and I live in Michigan. So if we have anything in common, please feel free to hit subscribe. I'd love to have you as a watcher, and leave a comment if there's anything that has helped you recover from concussion, or if you've had a friend who's recovered from a concussion and found something specific to work, so that we can spread more knowledge. I love you guys. Have a beautiful day.